Why iPhones don't need 12 GB RAM. So let me ask you a simple question. How can an Android phone have 12 GB RAM and even 16 GB RAM, while at the same time an iPhone can run on just 6 GB or 8 GB and still remain fast and stable? Does Apple really use less RAM? Or is something happening inside the system that we as users simply don't see? The surprising thing is that the issue is not just a number written in the specifications, it's actually related to how the system itself manages RAM. So the iPhone doesn't need 12 GB of RAM, but why Android often needs a larger amount and what actually happens inside your phone. So first, we need to understand what RAM actually does. RAM is simply the temporary space where apps run from. So when you open up your Facebook or your YouTube, the camera, a game, each one of these apps is temporarily placed in RAM so it can open quickly. If RAM is limited, apps close or reload again, or the phone becomes slow. But here comes the important question. Why does the iPhone need less RAM? The first and the most important reason is how RAM is managed on iOS. The system uses something called memory compression. Instead of closing an app, the system compresses the data inside it and keeps it stored in a smaller space. In the result, apps stay open, RAM stays available, the device remains fast. And that's why the iPhone can keep many apps in memory even with less RAM. Android is designed to run on Samsung, Xiaomi, Oppo, or hundreds of different devices. That's why the system needs more flexibility. Many services running all the time, different customizations from manufacturers, so companies compensate for that by increasing the amount of RAM. That's why you see Android phones with 12 GB RAM, 16 GB RAM, and sometimes even more. If we look at the processor side, it also plays a very big role in the iPhone. Apple designs the processor or the system, the hardware altogether, which means the processor itself, is designed to manage RAM very efficiently. But in Android, the processor comes from one company. The system comes from Google, the device comes from another company, so they don't always have the same level of integration. And here comes the question that's probably in your mind, which is, does the bigger number mean bigger performance? Not necessarily. Sometimes an Android phone with 12 GB RAM and an iPhone with 6 GB RAM can both feel almost the same in everyday use. Because performance doesn't depend on RAM alone, it depends on the processor, the system, power management, and app management. That's it. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Thanks for watching.